Welcome to this explainer. Come on, pull your chair a little closer to the candle and keep your voice down, all right? The shadows in this royal library are pretty long tonight, and well, the walls here have a terrible habit of listening. I am the High Court advisor, and tonight I'm opening up my most private diaries to you. We're going to examine a very particular, very dangerous kind of political magic. We're looking at the 22nd spirit of the Ars Goetia, a figure known as Ipos, or sometimes Ipes. But listen, we aren't studying him as some mere monster. No, we're studying him as a mentor, the coward's mentor. Take a look at the very first entry in my diary here. They asked for courage today, but courage is expensive when purchased honestly. You see, my fragile pupil, the young royal, is absolutely terrified of the public eye. And what the ancient texts tell us about Ipos is that he offers a cheaper alternative to genuine bravery. He offers the absolute, unshakable appearance of it. When a weak voice desperately needs to command a room, or when cleverness has to become a mask for deep, crippling uncertainty, well, that is exactly when the archetype of Ipos enters the narrative. Just picture the sheer theatrical tension of a royal hall right before a nervous leader is forced to speak. The visual palette of an Ayporos story isn't about blood and brimstone, not at all. It's noble yet profoundly unsettling. Imagine the heavy, suffocating scent of candle smoke, dark red banners hanging from the rafters, golden light catching on old parchment, shadows pooling together like a thick lion's mane, and then the cold reality of wet stone beneath pale, completely out-of-place feathers. It's literally the palpable tension of a performance that's just about to begin. Now, check out the visual contradiction of the spirit himself, because it perfectly mirrors the political bravado of my pupils. On one hand, you have his upper half, an angelic body and a lion's head. I mean, this projects absolute majesty, hierarchy, pride, the fearless presence of an apex predator. But look at the foundation. The base of this creature is built on the webbed feet of a goose and the twitching tail of a hare. Awkwardness, instability, nervous speed. It's a cosmic joke hidden right inside of pride. Even a creature of absolute command is built on a foundation of frantic, comical instability. So, that brings us to my second entry. We no longer value what we know, only how loudly we can claim to know it. As an archetype for political fantasy or court intrigue, Ipos acts as this harsh mirror held right up to our own ambitions. I mean, why does our society reward a loud, confident lie over a quiet, hesitant truth? Ipos doesn't give a character actual physical strength. He grants them the overwhelming atmosphere of strength. A total coward can suddenly look like a brilliant hero simply because their jokes cut sharper and their eyes seem to hold these terrible ancient secrets. It's really fascinating to see how this tragedy builds within the Goetic tradition itself. In the emotional progression of the Ars Goetia, Ipos is a terrifying bridge. First, you have Purson, the spirit who uncovers buried memory and grounded ancestral truth. Then comes Marax, representing the quiet, internal study of the heavens and the earth. But then, we reach Ipos. Here, knowledge is violently turned outward. Internal study becomes public speech, speech morphs into unbreakable confidence, and confidence becomes absolute, terrifying power over the room. It's a steep descent from genuine wisdom straight into socially dangerous, weaponized wit. And honestly, it's no coincidence at all that the texts say he commands 36 legions of spirits, holding a highly specific double rank. He's both an Earl and a prince. This dual title is just perfectly suited for navigating the treacherous waters of a royal court. Think about it. An Earl represents calculated, noble administration and endless paperwork, while a prince represents commanding, untouchable royalty. Ipos sits precisely in the middle of those two worlds. He's the meticulous administrator of lies and the prince of performed bravery.
Okay, let's look at the third entry. I watch my fragile pupils succumb to the hollow confidence of a secret tutor. Let me tell you, it is agonizing to watch this as an advisor. You see this deeply insecure ruler, terrified of being exposed as foolish or weak, just retreating into the shadows to receive secret tutelage. They absolutely refuse to do the hard work of actually becoming brave. They just want the quick fix, you know? They want the applause. And Ipos? He is elegantly amused by their panic, gladly offering them the ultimate shortcut.
So, what does this all mean? How do we actually define this force? Well, Ipos is the demon of performed courage. He is that exact terrifying moment when fear is hastily shoved behind sudden eloquence, when a weak voice artificially drops an octave just to command attention, and when sharp cleverness is deployed solely to mask a much deeper, far more pathetic uncertainty. Honestly, he's the patron saint of imposter syndrome, offering a cure that is so much worse than the disease itself. As a mentor, his instructions to his victims are always exactly the same. He whispers in their ear right before they step out onto the balcony. Stand taller. Puff out your chest like a lion. Speak faster. Overwhelm them with your words before they can even question your logic. Dart around their arguments like a frightened hare. And whatever you do, do not let them see the wound. You have to cover your absolute panic with speed and volume, completely terrified that if you pause for even a single second, your goose feet are going to show right beneath your royal robes. But, the performance can't go on forever. In my time walking these shadowy halls, I've written down my observations. Entry 4. 3 times I have seen the lion's bargain force a desperate soul's hand. When you accept the gift of external confidence, you are eventually backed into a corner. For sure, you get elevated to positions of immense responsibility way before you're truly ready, and then you're forced to make impossible moral choices based on a bravery you simply do not possess. I've actually documented 3 specific scenarios. Think of them as plot hooks, for understanding exactly how this archetype poisons a political landscape. First, there's the coward's crown. Second, the deadly trial of wits. And finally, the general who never fears. Let's briefly look at how his dark influence takes root in each of these desperate souls. The coward's crown is perhaps the most common tragedy you'll see in these halls. A young heir, completely paralyzed by the crushing expectations of public rule, begs for a solution. Ipos grants them a voice that never, ever trembles. Every single speech they give wins absolute, fanatic loyalty from the crowd. But the cost? It's insidious. Because their public voice is entirely a borrowed performance, the heir slowly forgets how to speak honestly in private. The lie literally consumes the truth. A terrifying trade-off, isn't it? Then we have the trial of wits. Picture this: a condemned scholar standing before a ruthless tribunal, completely out of their depth. But suddenly, they start answering these impossible, complex questions with biting, arrogant genius. They somehow survive their execution, and the entire court celebrates their incredible intellect. But what the scholar doesn't realize is that it's not their own wit saving them. Something with a lion's face is speaking through them, and eventually, that lion is going to demand payment for its brilliant answers. And perhaps the absolute most dangerous of all, the general who never fears. A military commander makes a bargain to have their fear entirely removed, just so they can look invincible to their troops. And sure, they do become unbeatable on the battlefield. But listen, fear serves a purpose. Without it, the general just becomes an empty shell. They lose their caution, they lose their pity for their own men, and fatally, they completely lose the vital instinct to retreat when a battle is truly lost, ultimately leading thousands to an unnecessary slaughter. Which leads us to the absolute darkest page of my diary. Entry 5. The mask has fused to the flesh. They no longer know where the lie ends. This is the ultimate psychological devastation of choosing performative strength over true identity. Courage that is gifted from the outside never, ever becomes courage from within. The more the protagonist relies on this demonic confidence, the more they confuse the performance with their actual true self. Let's break down the horrific ledger of this transaction. On one hand, the benefits are intoxicating. You get public adoration, unwavering magnetic wit, and total command of literally any room you walk into. But look at the psychological costs over here. You suffer a complete erosion of the self. You develop an extreme, desperate reliance on the applause of others just to feel real. And worst of all, you lose the ability to ever be vulnerable, open, or honest with anyone ever again. You're entirely trapped in your own armor. So, I'm going to leave you, my fellow learner, sitting here in the dark with me, with one final question from my notes. If everyone around you, your troops, your court, your entire kingdom, if they all believe you are brave, does it actually matter whether you truly are? Now, the hero says yes, inner courage is the only thing that matters. But the tragic figure, the student of Ipos, they say no, it doesn't matter at all. At least, not until the performance completely fails at the worst possible moment. Think carefully on that before you next take the stage.